Next, we'd like to talk about how to run effective virtual meetings and communicate successfully and collaborate within your group. So, when we collaborate, we generate ideas and we create knowledge. Those ideas and knowledge from the output of our collaboration, it's why we're all here. So there's a really important question. It's where is that resulting knowledge stored? Well, is it just stored in people's heads? Or is it just stored in written notes on paper or on whiteboards or in flip charts? When it's just stored in people's heads, it represents a significantly lost opportunity for sharing that knowledge with other people. You know, there are other places where knowledge can end up landing up if it's just documents on somebody's hard drive or just email threads shared between a few individuals. That data is still locked up so that only certain people have access to it. Once we start putting that knowledge out into better places like web forums or web pages or collaboratively editable documents, shared documents, then it begins broadening the impact that information can have. So we've put together something called the Communications Plan for the Software Excellence Alliance. There's a link to it in this slide. You can view later. But the best practices in that communications plan are designed to help ensure that your ideas have a lasting impact and reach the broadest possible audience.
Okay, so the first step is in running effective meetings. And so we want to make sure that when you do a meeting invitation that you always invite the Google group on the calendar invite. And what this does is when somebody joins that Google group, they will automatically get the meeting invitation. So that way you're not really relying on remembering who to invite. Any changes that you make to the meeting notes get propagated to the right person. And that way you don't have people missing meetings because they weren't informed. Whenever you have a meeting, it's really important to document that meeting because you want a written record of what happened. If you don't, it's almost as if the meeting didn't happen. The information is, like David said, it's just in people's heads. So to facilitate meeting minutes, we put a meeting minute template in each working group folder. And that includes an agenda with some standard items and a place for you to add agenda items. So these are Google Docs. So during the meeting, everybody can take meeting minutes collaboratively. It can be very difficult to take minutes if you're the one talking, but if everybody's in the documents, then everyone can be taking minutes at the same time. In the meeting minutes template, there's an email template. So when the meeting is done, you can send an email to the working group and just say, hey, we had this meeting, here's the template. If you missed the meeting, please follow the link and mark that you've read them. And that way, if you've missed a meeting, you can go back and read the minutes. And as Steve said, it's almost as if you were there. We also strongly suggest that you use a naming convention, year, month, date, to ensure that the minutes are stored chronologically. But paying attention to the process will really pay off in the long run. It will really help to make sure that you have a complete record of everything the working group did, what your decisions were, and why you made those decisions. When you send emails, it's also important that you use the Google group. So when you say in the to section of your email, you want to include the Google group email. And what this does is it makes sure that that email goes to the interested parties. So typically on working group emails, you have the active working group members, and there are other people that often say they want to stay informed with what the working group's doing, but they're not necessarily going to go to every meeting. So it ensures that all your emails go to the interested parties, and then it archives them on that web forum so that when you have someone new join your working group, they can go back and see all the communications that have transpired before them. So that keeps that information accessible to current and future working group members. So if you do a send and you're a working group member, you will not get a copy of it, but when you do the reply, you'll be included. That will come back to you. So these are just little habits that if you can get used to doing, it will ensure that you have a complete record of your working group. Next is collaboratively working on documents. And here again, where the Google Drive is so important, a lot of us are working at different organizations and we have different ways that we access documents. The Google Drive makes these documents accessible to everybody in the Alliance. And so what you want to do is when you want to create a new document or put a document out for review or input, upload it to your working group file on the Google Drive, and then send a link to that document to the working group. And so this makes sure that everyone's looking at the latest, most up-to-date version. If it's a G Sheet or a Google document or a Google item, you can add your comments and track them through completion. So someone, like as we built this training, someone would make a comment, somebody could reply to it. When we resolved it, we can mark it resolved. And all of that history is kept, and all the versions of the document are kept. So you can go back in time and really understand how you got to where you are, if there's any issues. If you don't do that, if you just send the document through email, then you either get back, 4 different versions of the document marked up, and now you've got to take comments from 4 different files and consolidate them into one file, or each reviewer has to tediously say, on page 6, second paragraph, third word, change this to that. And it's very error prone, and you can end up working on updating the wrong document, or you just lose control of your versions very quickly. And it ends up not being very respectful of people's time. It just takes a lot longer to develop a document in that manner.